Hi, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to my sewing room. This is So Be It. This week I am making something quite basic because my next project is going to be a dress that I am kind of designing myself. I have an idea in my head and I don't have a pattern. I haven't been able to find a pattern, but I do have some tools. I have my Dressmaking the Easy. The next project will be modifying pattern blocks to make the design that I actually have in my head become a reality. I have not made basic fitted pattern blocks in a really long time, and my body measurements, they haven't changed much, but the measurements themselves haven't changed, but my body composition has. Things have shifted a little bit over the year that I've been sewing for myself. This week I am using the Easy Guide for my dressmaking to make basic pattern blocks that fit me to my measurements. I will be walking step by step through the book, doing the measurements or doing the adjustments that I need to do for my body. The point for this video is to actually show you that this is quite easy to do, and then you have basic pattern blocks and you already have a pattern for a dress ready to go. It is just a basic sheath dress that you can make from your basic pattern block. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I know this is somewhat of a new angle, but we're gonna go ahead and try it because I have finally finished my sample wall. One thing that I always do when I make my own patterns is I pick the size based off of my actual measurements. So my measurements in this book that I'm using today, or this week, this one, my bust is a size 7 and my waist and my hips are a size 8. So when I make my patterns, I automatically do the grading. So if you can somewhat see in here, the red lines on the outsides, you grade from a small size to a bigger size. So I grade from a size 7 till right about below my bust. I think I did about 3.5 inches actually on the side seam, and then I started grading up to a size 8 for the waist and hip. And that actually, as you can tell, is quite a nice fit for my body. However, it is still not the complete correct proportions. So I've already measured the seam allowance on my shoulders where my sleeves are going to be. Let me mark it again at 5/8. So right here, that's the seam allowance. That's the 5/8 mark right there. So if I put my finger right here, whoops, right at the 5/8 mark, or right about, sorry, I knocked it, right about at the 5/8 mark, we can tell my shoulder bone is right there. The edge of my shoulder bone is right here. So we have about a 1/2 inch. I'm going to somewhat measure it. But actually is right about at a 1/2 inch. So I need to take my shoulders in a 1/2 inch on my pattern pieces. So these are the shoulders here. This has to go in a 1/2 inch, and this has to go in a 1/2 inch when I trace my permanent pattern pieces onto my poster board. I got poster board for each of these. It won't have a seam allowance in it, so from my seam allowance line it has to go in 1/2 inch, and then I will use my fashion ruler to then go ahead and curve this back down and make it seamlessly right back in to the bottom of, or into the armhole itself. So that's the first thing I have to do. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a note on what I have to change. Okay, the next thing I have to work on, or the next thing I have to fit to my body specifications is the waistline. I have a bit of a shorter torso, so that means I have a bit of a higher waist. Your waist is the smallest point on your body, and if you're not sure exactly where your waist is, or you have a very similar measurements, what you can do is put your hands on your waist and then bend to the side and mark where does your waist actually bend. And mine bends right up here, literally just under my bust, and that's right about where my rib cage ends as well. So I now also have to figure out how high I need to adjust my waistline. So obviously where the seam is the waistline, and I need to mark, let me find my pen. I need to mark, and I'm going to on this exactly where my waist is. So for now, that is good enough. When I take this off, I will then measure and do an average, because these here, that one seems to be a little bit high, but down here it seems to be about in the same spot, so we'll figure this out. For me, it's usually between a ½ inch and an inch that I have to raise my waistline anyways. And that's just something I've figured out as I have been working on fitting. So if I take this, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and pin this. Okay, so there's the front pinned up to where it will be. Obviously this is draping a little bit funny because the back's not pinned up. That's okay. The waist is also a little bit loose, but again, let me put up in here too. But that's okay as well, because when you sit down, obviously things spread out, and so you don't want it too tight, so then it would just be uncomfortable. Okay, so that is about where the new waistline is going to lay, and I think I did take it up probably closer to 3/4 of an inch on these ones. So that's how that will look. And then barely, you can see the hip line right here in my blue pen, and that's actually where it needs to be now if I just raise the waistline. The bust line, honestly, I need to alter my darts. Let me see if I'm getting to that point yet. So for the bust darts, it says you might just have to redraw the darts on the pattern paper. So when I shorten my bodice, I'm already going to have to redraw my bottom darts. So all I have to do is move the apex down a little bit lower. It says it's supposed to be 3/4 of an inch away from my actual bust point. So I need to go 3/4, I need to mark my bust point and then go 3/4 of an inch down for my bottom dart and 3/4 of an inch up for my bust point for my top dart, and then adjust those on my pattern piece. So my apex is actually right here at the top of these darts. Funny enough. Put on the apex, mark it here. Okay. For this one, it won't be too hard because I can just measure on the pattern. Actually, it won't be too hard for the other one either, because then again, you can just measure on the pattern. So the circles are my new apex, and the dots on here are my new dart points. So that will have to be adjusted. I don't need to alter my side seams because I did that when I originally made my pattern, and the way I do it seems to always work out. So I think that's all the basic alterations that this pattern needs. So I will now go and alter my pattern pieces. I don't think the skirt pattern actually has to be altered at all, just the bodice pattern pieces. And the back seems to be just fine, other than raising the waist and changing my armholes. So that is the next step. So I will be back to actually show you the alterations that I am making on my pattern pieces, because they are a little bit more advanced. All right, it is time now for the next step of this project, which is adjusting my pattern pieces. I'm going to start with the easy ones first, which is taking in the shoulder. And I need to take it in a 1/2 inch from the seam allowance, but if I just take it in a 1/2 inch right now from where it's at, that will leave the seam allowance on this. And then when I transfer this to my poster board, I can just take the seam allowance off at that time. So right now it'll just be easier because I'm gonna have to recut my fabric anyways. For this one, I am going to use my gauge just because I'm kind of lazy. But I'm going to go ahead and put my 1/2 inch mark here. Ooh. And then I have my fashion ruler, which this is an armhole curve right here. So we're going to use that, and we're going to taper it down to this. Alright, and that's my new line. You can somewhat see it there. And I'll cut it off. So that was the back bodice piece. I need to do the same thing to the front. And then actually to add the seam allowance onto this, it is pretty easy. So I have my clear ruler, and this actually has, you can really tell, my 5/8 of, or my 1/8, each 1/8 is marked on this one. So I put this at 1/8 and we're at our line right there, we're good. And then I'm gonna start making marks here. Alright, that is my new seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and move these over. That way it is ready when I do transfer my pattern. And do the same thing to this one. Next, I need to raise my waist 3/4 of an inch. So to do that, I'm going to go up about an inch from the bottom. So right about here. It doesn't have to be perfectly at an inch. But I'm going to use this so that I can make sure that this line is as perpendicular as I can get it, because I've got these other lines here that I can use. Okay, and then I need to raise it 3/4 of an inch. So I then need to draw another line 3/4 of an inch above it. And that line needs to be parallel. And do the same thing to the back piece. I am going to line these up so that I can get my lines in the same spot. And then I'll go 3/4 of an inch up from that. I need to fold along my first line and place that fold onto the second line, reducing the length of the bodice, and tape it in place. I'll do the back first. Take it up and meet that line. Also take it on this side. And now I need to do the other one. It then says to redraw any lines that are not quite straight, including the side seam and darts. Don't alter the actual waistline. But I still have to alter these darts first. I need to alter this now. So this needs to be my new apex right here. I need to move this dart 3/4 of an inch down. and then move this one 3/4 of an inch down. Which means these need new lines. And then I will redraw this dart so that these lines are straight. That was just the legs down there that changed. So I think that's all for the adjustments on my pattern pieces. So now I will be using the same toile to remake this. So I'm going to go ahead and undo the top of the zipper and take the bodice off and completely unpick all of that and recut this out of that. And then once I get that finished, I will be back to show you my progress and to see if there's any other changes that I need to make. It's possible, like a full bust adjustment. Let me see what other possibilities. I'll have to check the armhole, whether or not those are gaping. It doesn't have a rounded back, but that may change when I make these alterations, so we'll see if I need to do that. I possibly might have to do a bust alteration, which I've never done, and then that will be all for fitting, so I will be back. Okay, this is my new fitted toile. It seems I did not press the waistband, which I should have, because this would be a lot crisper, but it's okay. It seems that all of the alterations that I have made fit. I don't need to do a full bust adjustment because I just went with my bust measurements, and once I raised the waistline, altered the bust, or the bust measurement, and altered my shoulders because this is just the seam allowance, so that will work out great. I now have a fitted toile. So my next step, or my final step for this, is to get it onto the poster board, or get my pattern pieces. Get my pattern pieces, my bodice ones, my skirt ones, and my one sleeve one, traced onto my poster board. So then I have some pattern pieces that I can use to figure out new styles. Now that I have my pattern pieces finalized, I will be tracing them onto regular poster board paper. I am not going to cut the seam allowance off of these just because I want to keep those bodice pieces for this project that I'm making next with the seam allowance. So I have this tracing wheel. It looks a little bit jagged here, and I'm going to use this to trace around the pattern, and then I will be using Sharpie to draw in all of the lines. Ooh, I can actually get a couple pieces on this first piece of poster board. That's pretty nice. So I'm kind of just going to show you a little bit of what I'm going to do. Because I only have a tracing wheel, I am going to use my pins and poke where my holes should be for my darts. I'm going to leave this here so that will weigh it down. I'm going to lay this down. That way these won't move, hopefully, as I am tracing them. And now the outline of the pattern is this line here. So that's what I will be following with this. So that is the outline for this entire piece. I'm going to do the same thing to this. And then I'm going to trace all of these lines except for my bust line and obviously these darts onto this piece. So this is my bodice pieces all traced out. I decided to make sure I wrote the date on here if my weight fluctuates. And a reminder that there is no seam allowance because I always forget about that. I think that's the date on here is a good idea because I am someone who fluctuates in weight often. And so this will help know, plus who knows if I lose weight and gain weight and then I'm like, oh, I was wearing those clothes in May of 2025. I can go back and find this as well. So that's all that I have for you this week because my next steps are tracing out the skirt pieces and the sleeve piece, pattern piece, and then just cutting them out of my poster board. What's an advantage of making these pattern block pieces? Well, you do already have one dress ready to go. You just have to add the seam allowance onto it and you can whip up a dress that you know is going to fit you really, really quick. You can also especially search on YouTube. I don't know how to do a lot of this and I'm doing a lot of learning right now, but you can alter all of these pieces to make just about any shirt or skirt or dress that you would like to design. All you have to do is, you can move darts around, you can remove darts completely, and all of that takes just some manipulating of these basic bodice blocks. You can make so many different skirt shapes, which is actually what I'll be doing with these, and that's why I wanted to do this. So that's what this is for. Thank you for watching my video this week. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, go ahead and hit that like button for me. If you want to see all my videos, or you want to make sure that you do see all my videos, hit the subscribe button and you can subscribe to my channel. And then if you actually want to be notified every single time I post, then hit that notification bell and YouTube will notify you when I post. Thank you again for watching Rebecca's Sewing Room. This was So Be It.